I give the call to the Honourable Michelle Boylan.
Thank you, President. My presence here today is not about position or politics. It's about people. People whose lives are not shaped by ideology, but by hard work, quiet sacrifice, and the hope that someone in this parliament is listening. My purpose here is not to speak for the loudest voices, but to ensure that those living and working in our regions are no longer overlooked. To speak plainly, to act responsibly, and to advocate for policies that are guided by practicality, decency, and common sense. I stand here today because when you have spent your life listening to people, not from behind a desk, but beside them, you begin to understand the quiet battles they fight and with quiet dignity at which they fight them. I rise today not out of long-held political ambition, but from a deep belief in service. Service to the community I call home, to the values that shaped me, and the many people whose voices are too often lost between decisions made in Perth and the daily reality of life in regional Western Australia. My path to this place has been far from traditional. I've worked in kitchens, worn a police uniform, raised a family, supported children in schools, and stood beside men, women and children in crisis. Those experiences have taught me a simple truth. Government cannot solve every problem, but it must never forget who it exists to serve. I come from a family that believes in hard work, public service and doing things properly, even when no one is watching. That if something is broken, you fix it, and if someone is left behind, you step up. That's what led me to the kitchen, then the police station, then the council chamber, and now here. I grew up in Duncraig with my sister Janine in a home my parents built. My dad put a $10 deposit on a block of land in Duncraig, and together they built a life. It was a modest place, but it was filled with purpose and the values I carry with me to this day. My father was born in Alice Springs. He worked hard his whole life. He was a mechanic, owning and running his own service station in Darwin, then later taking a job with General Motors Holden and moved to Perth with Mum. He stayed with the company until he retired, and not long after, we lost him to a battle with prostate cancer. He passed away in 2006, but not a day goes by where I don't hear his voice in the back of my mind reminding me to keep at it. My dad and I both had dyslexia. It made school harder, it made certain things slower, but he never allowed it to be an excuse. He would always say, "Shelley, you and I aren't any different from anyone else. We just have to work twice as hard." He believed in effort, in doing things right the first time, and in carrying your own weight. My mum was a midwife, a job she loved and one she was brilliant at. She was calm, clever, and quietly formidable. She assisted in delivering all my children and was a rock of support through every twist of my life. She had strong views about a lot of things, and she was never shy about sharing them, particularly with me. When I went into hospitality, she was worried about the hours. When I joined the police force, she was worried about the dangers. And when I started talking about going into politics, well, she was, let's say, very unconvinced. She once sat next to Andrew Hastie at a party event, Andrew had been encouraging me to run for Parliament, and she didn't hesitate to let him know just exactly what she thought of that idea. But in true mum fashion, the next morning she was sending me articles from the West Australian and telling me what was on Gareth Parker's radio program. She might not have loved the idea, but she never stopped supporting me. Mum passed away 18 months ago after a 10-year battle with breast cancer, and today would have been her 83rd birthday. It's hard to stand here without her because I know exactly what she'd say. She'd still be nervous, still disapprove just a little, but she'd be proud. I was incredibly lucky to grow up with parents who just didn't support me. They gave me a very clear and moral compass. They taught me that your word matters, that effort matters, and that looking out for others, particularly those doing it tough, is part of our responsibility. And those values, respect, kindness, determination, and resilience, have guided me through every chapter. That's why I'm here, because I believe in the kind of politics that starts with people's real lives, not ideology, not ambition, but service. And a belief that if something isn't working, you should try to fix it. Because no one's more qualified to care than the person who sees the problem. When I left school, I was ready to work. I enrolled in a pre-apprenticeship in cooking at Corrine TAFE, and soon after gained a full apprenticeship at Jessica's, the fine dining restaurant at the Hyatt. I was their first female apprentice. It was hard work, long hours, high expectations, but it taught me discipline, pride in a job well done, and how to hold your own in tough environments. I worked in successful restaurants where every night you had to prove yourself. Eventually, I moved on to work at the National Australia Bank, running the executive boardroom for the state manager. I cooked for high-profile clients, senior business people, and even future colleagues, including the then Commissioner of Police. Our conversation at the police graduation ceremony was not on what I had achieved at the academy, but on who was now going to cook his favourite lunch. But after 12 years in kitchens and boardrooms, I knew I had something more to give. I'd grown up hearing stories from my grandfather, who was once the Commissioner of Police in the Northern Territory. His stories painted a picture of courage, resourcefulness, and serving others in some of the harshest conditions in Australia. These stories stayed with me, and at 29, I made the decision to join the WA Police. I graduated from the Academy in November of 1997, and I absolutely loved the job. I loved the team dynamic, the discipline, the unpredictability, and most of all, I loved helping people. You're thrown into people's lives on their worst days. You see the best and very worst of human nature, and it's in those moments that your purpose becomes clear. I started in the North Metro District, but before long I transferred to regional WA. I took my daughter with me and embraced country policing, and this is where my love for regional communities really took root. I'll be honest, I liked arresting offenders, writing briefs and interviewing suspects. But what I found myself drawn to the most were families in crisis, women fleeing domestic violence, children suffering from abuse, and parents struggling to hold it all together. And what I saw over and over again was how much harder life is when you live outside the city. In the country, if you're trying to help a woman escape a violent relationship, you often run into brick walls. No transport, no nearby refuges, no ways for children to keep going to the same school. Support services, if they exist, are an hour or hours away. Mental health services for kids are either unavailable or come with a long wait list. And schools, even when trying their best, are left to manage serious wellbeing issues without proper resourcing. It was frustrating, heartbreaking, and in many cases, it was preventable. That experience lit a fire in me. It made me believe deeply that good government isn't about managing headlines. It's about building systems that work for real people in real places. After more than a decade with the WA Police, with a growing family and a FIFO husband, I made the difficult decision to step away from the job. When I left police, I was not stepping away from public service. I was just finding a different way to do it. Not long after I resigned, I was introduced to Youth Care, a wonderful community organisation that supports children and school communities across Western Australia. The more I learned about their work, the more I knew I had something to offer. At Youth Care, I became a regional manager responsible for placing chaplains in WA public schools and supporting them in their work. I wasn't just managing programs, I was advocating for kids, for families and for teachers trying to make a difference every single day. What struck me the most was how often schools are asked to be more than schools. They are stepping in where other systems were failing, providing mental health support for students and families and basics like food and uniforms. But they weren't given the tools to do it. I had spent over a decade in policing, where you often meet families once the damage is already done. At Youth Care, I was working at the other end, trying to strengthen the communities before it hit. And that confirmed what I always believed. Prevention is always better than reaction. It was during this time that a great mentor and colleague, Stanley Gerard, suggested I consider politics. I laughed. I think my exact response was, "Are you nuts? Who would want to be a politician?" But plant the seed and watch it grow. I ran for local government in the 2019 Shire of Harvey elections. To my surprise and deep gratitude, I was elected with the highest number of votes. I loved my time on council. It brought me back to direct contact with the community. Roads, bins and planning applications might not sound so glamorous, but it's the level of government where trust is built or lost. I had the very great fortune to work with an outstanding CEO and a great team during my time on council. It gave me a front row seat to the challenges regional communities face and how often decisions made in Perth miss the mark on what life is actually like outside the city. One special moment that sticks with me wasn't in the council chamber, but at a local ratepayers meeting. My son, who was 11 at the time, stood up and made the case for a new skate park in Harvey. He helped collect signatures, drafted his own speech, and delivered it with more poise than I ever had at that age, or frankly, more than a few adults I've seen. I was proud, nervous, and slightly jealous of just how easy he made it look. We got to be part of that process from start to finish, and he stood next to me the day the skate park was open, proudly claiming at least some of the credit. But that moment wasn't about the park. It was about showing young people that their voices matter and that they really can help shape the places that they grow up in, even if they still leave their clothes on the floor. Over the past decade, the Shire of Harvey has grown more than 24%. Nearly a third of our residents are families with young children, and yet the gap between what the community needs and what they receive from the government continues to grow. As I worked across council, youth care and the community, I kept seeing the same thing. Common sense solutions being ignored because no one in the right room was listening. That's when the idea of state politics stopped being a joke and started feeling like a next step. I definitely didn't grow up dreaming of Parliament. But when you've walked alongside people through hardship, when you've sat with families who have slipped through the cracks, when you've given them the news that one of their children has been murdered, when you've seen how much difference well-designed support can make, you can't sit back. You have to stand up. I believe in the Liberal Party because I believe in people. I believe in small businesses and family farms, in local communities solving local problems, in the idea that governments should back people to get on with their lives, not stand in their way. That doesn't mean I believe government has no role, far from it. I believe in a government that knows when to act and when to step back, that creates the conditions for individuals, families and communities to thrive, but doesn't try to control every outcome. A government that protects the vulnerable, invests wisely and respects the people it serves. That's the vision of conservatism that guided my parents. It's what guided my service in the police, and it's what will guide my work in this place. In the regions, this isn't an abstract debate, it's reality. I've met farmers who are doing everything right, running efficient, ethical operations that feed our state, and yet they are being pushed to the brink by rising costs, unreliable infrastructure and decisions by government that put what they've built over generations at risk overnight. People like Anthony Ivankovic and his family who are here with us today. A third-generation grower who's been hit with a 50% increase in electricity costs. The impact on his business and his family isn't just financial, it's personal. It's a gut punch to the people who have spent their lives contributing to our food security. And what happens if these farms shut down? Where do we think our food will come from? What happens to the towns and jobs and communities like mine they sustain? In the Shire of Harvey alone, nearly a third of households have young children, but wait lists to get into the WA College of Agriculture are long. We say we value trades, but the pipeline of skills, training and real pathways isn't keeping up with demand. My son wants to be an electrician. One of my daughters is a nurse in training. Another runs her own small events business. And another is a hairdresser. These are real careers built from hard work and community support, careers that our community needs. But they shouldn't have to leave regional WA to find an opportunity. That's why I will fight for a future where young people can build their life in the regions, not just grow up and move away. That means investing in infrastructure that works, transport, telecommunications and energy systems that don't buckle under pressure, and not standing in the way of industries in these communities that can be and should be growing. It means listening to our police officers who are stretched thin, overworked and too often unsupported. These are people who put themselves on their line every day. If we don't act to retain experienced police officers and ease the pressure on the front line, the consequences will be and are severe. It means doing more to support women and families affected by domestic violence. In too many cases, policies look good on paper but fail in practice, especially when you live in a town without transport, housing or basic service access. These aren't just statistics. They're people I've worked with, families I've helped, and communities I've been part of. And I will not stop raising their voices in this Parliament. My approach is simple, practical, not ideological, grounded, not grandstanding. I'll fight to remove red and green tape holding back our regions. I'll back small businesses. I'll respect taxpayers' money, and I'll never forget who sent me here. I'm not here to chase headlines. I'm here to deliver results, because politics at best is not about control or power, it's about trust. I believe that when something's broken, you try to fix it. When someone's doing it tough, you help. And when your community needs a voice, you stand up and speak. That belief has guided me from the kitchen to the police station, to the schoolyard, to the council chamber, and now to this Parliament. I will use every day in this place to make government work better, particularly for the regions that continue to be overlooked. I want our young people to have a future they don't have to leave town to find. I want our police and frontline workers to be respected and not run down. I want our small businesses and farmers to know we have their back and that their contribution is valued. I want families experiencing hardship or violence to be met with compassion and action, not confusion and delay. I want to see government do what it should: enable, not overreach; protect, not smother; empower and not dictate. Being here today is, of course, the result of hard work, commitment and the support of many people. But I also recognise that it's not only about merit, it's about timing, circumstance and opportunity. And in that spirit, I want to acknowledge just how fortunate I am to be standing here, alongside new colleagues, knowing there are many other talented, hard-working candidates across our state who put themselves forward and didn't make it. Their contribution to our party and to public life should not go unrecognised. Their courage, effort and example inspire me, and I will carry that responsibility with me in this place. The future for any political party lies in understanding the people you wish to serve, their hopes, their values for the future, and earning their trust by delivering on them. The question isn't whether we become more progressive or more conservative. The question is whether we remain rooted in the lives of ordinary Australians and their desire for hope, reward and opportunity. True leadership doesn't sit on a spectrum. It stands with people, earns their confidence and then delivers for their future. That same principle applies to how we rebuild our party. We need more people from outside traditional political circles like mine to see this place as somewhere they belong. Not because of token gestures, but because their experience, judgment and service have earned it. Merit should never be defined narrowly. It exists in our communities, in workplaces, in homes and on the front lines of public life. If we want our party, indeed our democracy, to reflect the people it serves, we need to make it more open, more grounded and more inviting to those who spent their lives doing the work, not always being in the spotlight. That's what I believe in, and that's what I'm here to help build. There are a few people here I need to thank, and without them, I wouldn't be standing here. To Heather Gilmore and Kevin, Your encouragement, mentorship and sheer determination have meant more than I can say. You didn't just believe in me, you stood by me, pushed me and helped me to stay the course. Thank you. To Jessie Watton, we first met in 2019. You then took on the terribly thankless task of managing my first campaign. Your strength and discipline and support helped carry us through then and again in the most recent campaign. You have become a good friend and a mentor, and thank you. To Danielle Blaine, thank you for your guidance, being a source of party wisdom and constant supporter and friend. To Senator Matt O'Sullivan, thank you for your constant belief and support. To Simon Morgan and the entire team at HQ, thank you for backing me, guiding me, and especially answering my calls. To my dearest friends, Melanie, Chris, Annie, Pat, Stuart, and Kirsty, thank you for weathering the roller coaster that is politics. Your friendship, loyalty, and love have kept me grounded and relatively sane. To my husband, Frank, who says he dislikes the attention, but we all know the truth. You have supported me with patience and strength every step of the way. This moment belongs to you as much as it does to me, and I love you. Family is everything to us. To our children, Jay, Maddie, Tia and Harry, and their wonderful partners. Yes, that's right, Daniel, I said wonderful. Daniel and James, you are our greatest pride, my biggest reason why, and the truest reflection of the life Dad and I have built, and we love you. And to my 5 beautiful grandchildren, one of whom is here today, young Henry, I want to make this state better for your generation. That's the legacy I want to leave. So I finish as I began. I didn't come here for status, I came here for work. I came here to honour the values I was raised with, respect, resilience and responsibility. And I came here to fight for the people of the Southwest and for every regional family who deserves better. I won't always get it right, but I promise this: I will show up, I will listen, and I will fight every day to make our corner of Western Australia stronger and heard. Thank you.
Members of the gallery, could we refrain from taking photographs, please? Senator Small. Former Senator Small. No photographs, please.
That's right. Friends in the gallery, if you could please move to the exits as quickly and quietly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tick.